Vatsala, we are live.
Thank you, Rishabh. Alok sir, we are YouTube live now. I think we are good to go. May I start?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, a very warm welcome to everyone in today's webinar. I am Vatsala Khare, the lead of mentorship program at the Startup Incubation and Innovation Center, IIT Kanpur. I'll be your anchor for today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly highlight an exciting opportunity for startups and entrepreneurs in the field of agri-tech and sustainability. We are currently accepting applications for the third cohort of the Social Innovation Lab by Citi, where you could receive funding of up to 20 lakhs. 12 lakhs is for early stage startups who are in their MVP stage, and 20 lakhs is for growth stage ventures who are in the commercial stage. The deadline for applications is approaching fast. The last date is December 28, 2024. More details will be available in the chat box, so do not miss on this opportunity and an incredible chance to scale your business. Now, moving on to the heart of today's webinar. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us a true expert in the field of renewable energy, Mr. Alok Kumar, who is the renewable sales head for the Asia Pacific region at DNV. With over 19 years of experience, Mr. Alok has built an exceptional track record across a wide range of areas within the power sector, including renewable energy. Rishabh, the recording has stopped. Including renewable energy integration, infrastructure development, regulatory frameworks, policy incentives, and market dynamics. Mr. Alok has spearheaded numerous research initiatives focused on renewable energy markets in Asia, deep diving into subjects like energy procurement strategies, grid reliability, and market design principles. His work has played a significant role in shaping both regional and energy policies and regulatory landscapes. Additionally, Mr. Alok's involvement in international committees such as Bureau of Indian Standards and the EU-funded FORWIND project further underscores his leadership in driving global renewable energy transition. Mr. Alok holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace from IIT Kharagpur and a master's degree in aerodynamics from IIT Kanpur, complemented by executive education from prestigious institutions such as the University of California, Berkeley, and INSEAD Business School. Today, Mr. Alok will be sharing his invaluable insights on the topic of sustainability, innovation, and scaling up. We are in for an engaging and highly informative session, and I'm sure you'll walk away with a plenty of actionable key takeaways. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat box as we go along, and we'll address all these questions at different intervals of the presentation. Now, without much ado, I am delighted to welcome Mr. Alok to start the session formally now. Thank you, sir. The room is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vatsala. Good afternoon to all the participants here. So Vatsala, if you can confirm that, you can hear me as well as you can see the slide.
Yes, we can hear you, sir. I can see the slide also.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. So in the sustainability innovations and scaling up, I'm going to cover, the topics like innovative solutions. What are the types of innovative solutions? We'll be also discussing about the adoption of disruptive technology and what it all takes for the adoption, how much time does it take. And then we will discuss about the sustainability, what are the solutions which are sustainable and what kind of problems and challenges we can foresee in the future. And then, I will touch upon the scaling up. What are the issues and challenges around scaling up? And in the end, I will be discussing about the technology qualifications and why it is, really important for any new innovative technology to have this before they are scaled up. And this topic is also important because DNB has been primarily offering the service for more than 2 decades, and we have the recommended practices around this. But before that, I go into the topic. I wanted to introduce myself, but I think Vatsalas, he has already introduced me, and hence I will move to the introduction of the organization that I work for. And it's DNV. It's more than 160 years old company, headquartered in Norway, and it has around 15,000 employees, and we serve more than 100,000 customers globally, and we have an operation in more than 100 countries. DNV is actually a foundation, and hence it does not have any owner. And as per the statute of the foundations, DNV has to spend 5% of annual revenue in R&D every year. So it's revenue, not the profit. So even if DNB makes loss, but still it has to invest 5% of revenue in R&D, and that's the reason that DNB is at the forefront of innovative solutions. DNB works in three major verticals. First one is into the marine and offshore classification and advisory services. Second one is the entire energy value chain, where we extend our services for advisory, certification, verification, inspection, and monitoring. Third one is the management system certification, supply chain, and product assurance. And we also have software, platform, and digital solution encompassing all the three verticals. Within the energy systems, we cover most of the renewables technology, and overall, what typically we do, we certify, we verify, and we test against standards, specifications, and regulatory requirements. We qualify and assure new technology, system, data, platform, supply, and value chain. We also give expert advice on safety as well as technology and commercial risk. So along with the other, the industry partner, we co-create and share new rules, standards, software, as well as the recommended practices. So within the energy system, we have a deep and broad domain expertise, covering wind, solar, energy storage. We are also into hydrogen and carbon capture. We have more than 24 laboratories spread across the world. We have been in power grids in more than 80 years, and we are very much active in the energy use, which is largely the energy efficiency. Within the oil and gas sector, we are into all the three different segments, which is upstream, midstream, and downstream. So that's all about the company that I work for. Now I will move to the topic now. So I will start with disruption. So we talk about disruption in every industry, and it has turned out to be like a buzzword. And we always ask that, is it for real or is it more of a buzzword? And how is it going to affect the businesses in future? Can we anticipate or forecast it? And how can one capitalize on digital disruption which is going on? And will one act or be left behind? So that's the typical disruption, the buzzword as a buzzword we kind of talk about. So we are quite familiar with the example of the Nokia. So the left side, what you see is the Forbes magazine, which is in November 2007, where you see the Nokia CEO picture on the front page of the Forbes magazine, with the caption saying that 1 billion customers and can anyone catch the cell phone king. So that was the kind of market dominance in 2007. But the right picture is again of the same Nokia CEO crying during his last speech in September 2013, in less than 6 years, and Nokia had lost almost all its market share. So the question is, what happened within these less than 6 years, that from the the position of market dominance, it was nowhere. And Nokia CEO was saying that we didn't do anything wrong, but we somehow lost. So what went wrong here? They were kind of capturing market after market. They were the market leader. So that's the disruption. It comes across as a wave, and it will catch you unaware. So the question is, when once you try to catch this next wave, or when the next wave is going to come up. So these are the questions for any established company, and they try to figure this out because they want to avoid this. But before I go into that, when they should catch, I will try to delve into what are the innovative solutions. And if we look at any basic definition, so anything, any processes that can reduce cost, time, or if it can enhance the customer experience, that would be the innovative solutions. Because this is the kind of the value creations, and if those values can be commercialized or if they can be traded, and if we have the takers for those value, then they are the innovative solution. If that is not the case, then that can be termed as a creativity, but not the innovative solution. So we have one more state where we have a lot of problems, major problems in the world, and we are trying to find the solutions. And if we can find the affordable solution for those problems, if they are affordable, then they will also be the innovative solutions. So broadly, if we look at the innovative solution, we can categorize it into two parts. One is the incremental type of innovative solutions, where we try to enhance the efficiency within the same the business system or the business norms. And second one is the disruptive, which will completely change the current system, and it will bring into the new rule of the game. Typically, if you see the established companies, they are very good into the incremental type of innovative solutions. And if any startup, they are also working into the incremental innovation, then they will have to compete with the established company who have more resources and the existing supply chain to work around that. However, when it comes to the disruptive innovative solution, startups have an edge, and a startup do much better in the disruptive than in the incremental. And that's mainly because, when the established company have their infrastructure and they have their whole supply chain well established, they have the system in place, then that acts kind of an inertia, and that will not allow them to think, out of box. And that's the reason that most of the established company, even if they try hard, they are not able to have the disruptive innovations. But the disruptive innovation also has a challenge for a startup, which we will discuss. But first, I will discuss that, how disruptive technology they get adopted. If we, look in the last 30, 35 years, I have taken this from the Jeffrey Moore, the presentation, who is the pioneer in the US as a business consultant, and he has done a lot of research around the disruptive innovation. So according to him, if you look like last 35 years, then, in the recent parts, we have started with system of records. So that was the ERP, which brought in kind of a first wave of, I would say, the disrupting the industry, and whole supply chain was kind of optimized. And we saw the, the efficiency around that. But it took almost 30 years for the whole industry to adopt. And here, the product was the king, how the product was being procured, and the most of the innovations and the focus was on that. And after that, we moved into the system of engagement, where we kind of saw the mobile app, and the focus was on the end users and the experiences of the customer. And in this case, certainly the customer was the king. And next, right now we are going through the system of intelligence, where the focus is on data. We are talking about the big data algorithm and how to get the most of the data through the signals. So the data is the king right now. And slowly we have also started to see the system of autonomy, which is the vehicles or the focus on object. We talked about artificial intelligence and also, the machine learning. So if you see, the disruptive technology, they don't get adopted immediately. It takes time because you are changing the culture or the practice of the customer. So therefore, you are kind of bringing in a new rule to the game. And that's it takes some time for that adoption. And I will also describe that what challenges it brings because of this time. So for the established company, when is it the right time to catch the next wave? So as I mentioned, most of these disruptive innovations happen when 2, 3 other enabling factors are also present. For example, if we look at the system of engagement that I described through the smartphone or the cloud computing, it was possible because there were innovations around the lithium batteries so that the smartphone can work for a longer time with those batteries. There were innovations around the data and the data transfer and the data storage, and also internet were quite cheap. All these three enabling factors led to the system of engagement where our focus was on the customer and the customer as the king. Similarly, if you look at the system of intelligence where we are like capturing, processing, and storing data, optimizing the digital system and optimizing the physical system. This is more to do with the huge amount of the processing resources. We are talking about the quantum computing, and that is kind of enabling it. So somebody working in isolation will not, bring in the disruptive unless two, three other enabling factors also come into the picture. So it's more like, the connecting the dots, and that will create a wave, and it will kind of sweep over the industry. So the question is, when is it the right time to catch the next wave for any established industry? So as per Geoffrey Moore, he's saying that when the marginal cost approaches zero. When the marginal cost is going to zero, that's also the best time for the established company, because that's the time when their cost of production is very, very low. And typically what they will do that they will invest more into, the more factories, more, production to maximize the revenue and also to maximize the profit, because that's the best time when they are going to have the maximum profit. And while doing so, they will perhaps forget or overlook that the next wave is going to come. So whenever such industry are having such a best time, so that's also the best time to think about the next wave, how they can catch the next wave. So, when disruption changes the design rule, you have to catch the next wave. So what it means that, one can't avoid, one can't stick to their, the established infrastructure and the rule of the game, because things are going to change. So that's the bottom line. And this is not easy because many, many companies, they have failed to do so. I mean, here I have several examples, which you see here, all these tech leaders of this company, the Kodak, which brought in the digital, the photography, was not able to see the wave, and they all failed it. And the second time, it is very hard to catch it then or to recover from there. It's very hard. Why is it hard? So Geoffrey Moore describes that, if you want to catch the wave of, if you want to bring the disruptive innovation, it must go through a J curve. J curve is that, the initially your startup around the disruptive innovations will be incurring huge loss. And after a certain period of time, it will see exponential profit. Most of the, the startup that we see in the digital space, they have gone through that. They have burnt huge amount of money in the beginning, and after that, they all have had a kind of exponential profit, because by this time they have changed the rule of the game. They have changed the customer habits and their culture of exchanging goods and services. So what kind of stakeholders are supportive of this J-curve? So if we take an example, who is up for this? So if we look at venture capital investors in the true sense, yes, they do support, because they are able to see after the steep the exponential growth, and they can see that. Public market investors, no, they look for the profit, they look for the steady profit, and they are averse. They are not able to see that. A startup sales team, yes, they are more risk taking and they are up for it. Established sales team, no. So that is not possible. They see more of a, challenges and issues around it. Early adopter customers, because in the customers also we have few segment of customer who are trying new things, and we have the pragmatist customer who will go with the proven things. So the early one will kind of support this. But when we have pragmatist customers, they will not. In terms of your, sales partner or your channel partner, when we have the smaller ones, second tier partners, they will support. But your top tier partners, again, well established, and they look for, the certainty, they will not. So that's the reason that, it is said that in India, in the true sense, we don't have an ecosystem of venture capital who can support and see the J curve. And therefore, many say that that's the reason that India finds it very difficult to origin or to flourish or to a scale of any original disruptive ideas. So any startup though it is easy for them to do the disruptive innovation, but this is a challenge that they will face for the scaling up, and they will have to go through the J curve if they want to scale it up. So again, I will come to the innovative solution which we discussed. We discussed about any solution that can reduce the time or cost, or it can enhance the customer experience are the solutions. And also the problems. If you see, the most of the solutions which are being worked out are around solving the issues, and that's mostly the climate change issues. And around the climate change right now, most of the issues that we see and we are trying to solve is the decarbonizations. We are trying to solve the electrification, decentralizations. We want to electrify most of the things, and most of the innovations are around this. And the issues and challenges which are coming now are the stochastic nature of renewable sources, especially wind and solar, because they are not available all the time. And hence, we see a smart grid, we see battery storage, bringing down the prices of the battery storage, mainly to balance. When we need the electricity, it should be available, but the resources are not all the time available. So most of the most of the innovations and the efforts are going around this. And also, the hard to abate sector like a steel industry or the coal-based industry, how to electrify or how to have an aeroplane that will run on the renewable fuels. And that's where, we have the green hydrogen or the green ammonia coming into the picture, and a lot of research, even the government intensive incentives are there to bring down the price and also to scale it up and to make it commercially viable. So a lot of research and a lot of efforts are going around this. But one major aspect which will be troubling humankind for next 50, 75 years is missing. And before I discuss this, I would like to show this picture. So this is about, the DNB estimates or the forecast that when world is going to achieve the net zero, even though we are trying to have the net zero by 2050, but we estimate that is not going to be possible. Our climate goal is to limit the temperature rise within 1.5 degrees centigrade with respect to the pre-industrial era. If not 1.5, then 2 degrees for sure. However, DNV estimates is that we are not going to meet this target, because 1.5 degree would be exceeding at around 2030 and 2 degree at around 2050. And by the end of this century, we are going to see the 2.2 degrees centigrade. So that's the reality. In spite of all the efforts around the decarbonization and everything, or to limiting the emission, we are going to see 2.2 degree global warming. And what would be the ramification for that? So the climate change, we'll be seeing floods, drought, landslide, extreme hot, cold. So extremities we are going to see, and this is going to be the reality for next 75 years. And these extreme events are going to increase in terms of occurrence, number of occurrences, as well as intensity. However, across the world, we are into the denial mode. We are still thinking that, we can avert or we can avoid this. And these are going to have large scale impacts. The impact should be on the large part of the population's agriculture. And because of the impacts, any government in the world would be, willing to pay any price for any promise of solution. And this is about, the early warning system or any kind of agricultural adaptations, ecosystem restorations, and health measures. So I see that, a lot of issues and problems are going to come up in this aspect for next 50 to 75 years. And this is also one area where a lot of innovations are required, that how to respond to such extremities and how to adapt to it, because we are going to miss it. So of course, whatever we are doing is now is sort of mitigation measures. But as I mentioned, that we are most likely going to miss the climate goal, and it is already we have started seeing the extreme climates and how to sort this out. So that's also, the one aspect where we should put focus on. And I feel that, the response from the government is going to be reactive. It is going to be the knee-jerk reactions, and the government would be willing to pay any price for any promise of solution, I would say. So after this, I discussed that, the climate goal of net zero, we are most likely going to miss. But the question is that will all problems, at least related to the environmental issue, be solved after net zero? Are we, not going to have any kind of issue further that? So before that, let me define, what is renewables. So as a basic definition, any type of energy which can be replenished naturally or can be used repeatedly without depleting their supply would be renewables. So the main thing is that which cannot be exhausted, we can call it renewables. But I think, one aspect in this definition is missing, which is the rate of replenishment, or we call it pace of replenishment or rejuvenations, or what we call as natural recharge rate. It means that if oil and gas, we brought down our consumptions or rate of consumption to the level where it is equal to the natural recharge rate, then it will never be replenished. And in that sense, even oil and gas can be termed as renewables. So the most of the problems that we are having is because our rate of consumption is much higher than the rate at which those products are being created naturally. If we can bring down the rate of consumption, then everything is renewables. And if our rate of consumption is higher, then nothing is renewables. So therefore, even with the current solutions and the plan that we have, we are going to have a lot of issues and problems which will be cropping up in the future. For example, the solar PV cell, we are using silicon, and of course, the current rate of deployment of silicon or the current mining rate is far more than what nature can replenish on the daily basis or the natural recharge rate. Same is the story with lithium, graphite, and cobalt of the battery. And across the world, whatever new solutions we are applying at the largest scale. And again, I see that it is much above the natural recharge rate, and nature will not able to sustain, and that will be unsustainable. And with that aspect, we can find a lot of issues are going to come up, and that's the reason that there is a focus on circularity and circular economy as well as recyclability. So if you look at the right picture, you see here that when we have the circular economy, what we try to do that, if I take an example of solar plant, once the solar plant has lived its life of say 25 years, you kind of remove the models and you recycle it. You take out all the materials and you again try to build the new models using those recycled materials. So you are trying to recycle it again and again so that very little virgin raw material gets into the supply chain. And this virgin raw materials quantity should be equal to the natural recharge rate, then only it is sustainable. Otherwise, we are finding a solution and that solution will lead to another problem. The way we had with the industrial revolution, we solved some problem, but we had some other bigger problem. And therefore, I expect that a lot of innovations and innovative solutions would be around this circular economy and recyclability. And India, as a massive country with such a population, so this is a huge scope here. Now I will move to scaling up. So, what it takes to scale up once you have something, you have a solution and you want to scale it up. I mean, you want to deploy it at the mass level, how much time will it take? So I will take the famous picture of which Tony Sheva kind of always highlights. So this is a picture taken in 1900 of New York City, Fifth Avenue. And in this picture, you can see it's all horse cart. And there is just one car, which you can see, rest all horse cart. So how much time does it take? Did it take to have all car and all horse car to be replaced by the car? So if you see here, for the same street of New York City, Fifth Avenue, the picture was taken in 1913. And the street has all the car except one horse car. So just in 13 years, so that's the kind of transformations in those days when there were no computers, communication networks were not there the way we have now. And the whole backward, forward, the supply chain, the customer acquisitions and the service center, everything was done in less than 13 years. So that's the kind of scaling up. If your new innovative solutions has the mass appeal, it can scale up very, very fast. However, I would also like to highlight an issue, which the recently it has been in the news regarding the EV complaint and the number of issues. So if issues and challenges are not sorted out in the beginning, even the issues and challenges scale up. And those challenges, when they scale up, it could be overwhelming and it could be very difficult to manage. And therefore, there has to be a planning before you kind of deploy your solutions at the mass level. What could be those planning? I mean, one is, of course, you want to have the pilot test. You want to test, and depending on different variables, different geographies, you want to decide the number of pilots. So there is a kind of scientific way to design the pilot projects, and you want to run it. And why do we run it? Mainly because we have few known unknowns. We know what we don't know, but we also have few unknown unknowns, which are very, very risky. We don't know what we don't know. And through these pilot projects, we want to test the whole management system. It's not only the deployment, but it's also the whole process, how is it running? So it's not only about the technology, but it's the commercial, the system, it's the management system, it's the operating system, everything you kind of test in the real life environment so that, almost all unknown unknowns and non-unknowns are known to you and there is a mitigation plan. And that's the reason that, pilot projects are really required. And for any technology-based innovations, even before pilot projects, it is also necessary to have technology qualifications. So this is mostly about having a independent view of technology, that whether it is made or it is made for whatever defined the parameter or the environmental conditions, or it can perform the way it has been designed for. So pilot projects, number of pilots, how long to run it. Of course, these are all time consuming. There is also a pressure on everyone to go to the market quickly because you want to have the first mover advantage. You want to acquire the customer. So it's always a kind of trade-off because if you want to go quickly and acquire, then you run the risk of scaling your issues and challenges as well. But if you do a lot of pilots, you want to be doubly, triply sure, then you also run the risk of losing the market share. So that's always a kind of a balance, and therefore, the different company, they have different approach. For example, after the pilot, they will launch it in a limited geography to first test it at a much larger scale before launching it at the mass level. So that's about the pilot. In subsequent slides, I would be mostly describing about, the technology qualifications and what roles it can play. So for example, the developer and say end users or even investors who you are looking to invest in your solutions. So as a developer or as somebody who has developed these innovative solutions, of course, you would say that we can, but end users or other stakeholders, they will always ask you to convince. And it would be showing that look at what all great work we have done. Of course, you are confident, but how to convince others? And hence they would be asking that, is it relevant and complete? So this is where the roles of qualification comes into the picture, having an independent party, independent organization reviewing everything and qualifying your technology. And that can convince, the remaining stakeholders, be it investors, be it end users, or be it the government as a regulator. And end users or the investor, they will always ask for what is the residual risk. So you have everything quantified and you have the answers to convince them. So as for DNB, the definition of technology qualification is actually the process of providing the evidence that a technology will function within a specified operational limit with an acceptable level of confidence. So here two things are very important. One is that you have defined the operational limit of your technology and it has been tested or proven that it will operate within that limit. And second is the level of confidence, because nothing is like 0 or 1. So it's more about up to what level of confidence you can live with. So you have the technology developer, then you have the project manager, and then you have the stakeholders. So when you are starting to develop innovative solution, the confidence will be very low. But as you get along and once it reaches to the stakeholders, you should make sure that the level of confidence is within the acceptable limit. And that's where, the technology qualification can actually help. So DNV, first time it came up with the qualifications procedure for new technology and its recommended practice in 2001. And I think the latest revision was done in 2017. So this is a document which is publicly available and anyone can access from our website. It has a number of steps to follow. For example, it starts with the qualification basis. Here, actually, you are defining that what is the expectations of the technology? What is your expectation that how it should function? And in the technology assessment, which is the next step, you try to figure out that within the whole technology, which components are new and it needs qualification, which components are kind of well proven, because not everything will be new. And in third stage, you would kind of identify all threat, that could go wrong and what is the risk. And then you also have, if you find that you have the threat, you try to improve, and then you can go back to the loop and you try to improve the concept. Once this step is done, then you develop a qualification plan. And this plan is how to address the threats. And once that is done, then you have a certain analysis and test to walk the plan and see that whatever qualification plan you develop, that is actually working. And then finally, you will assess the performance that, initially in the qualification basis, whatever you had defined as a performance, this technology is actually within, that, and it is meeting those performance criteria. So it's an iterative process. You keep on doing till you reach to that level of confidence. Once that is done, then your technology is ready for deployment. So if you look at, the first step, as I mentioned, qualification basis, this is largely about defining, the technology and the system boundaries, because every technology should have the system boundaries. It can be within, in terms of environmental conditions. It could be in the number of taking loads. And then we also, limit or set the operational limit, and then we require to define the functional requirement. And finally, we also set the reliability target, which is the confidence level. So all of these things would be defined at the qualification basis. Once that is done, then we move to the technology assessment, where we look at the component level. Start from the full technology, then we look at the component level, that which are the components which are well proven, which are known, which have been used somewhere else, and which are the completely novel, one. So a top-down assessment starting at the overall system level is done. And while doing so, we also identify major challenges and uncertainties. Once that is done, then it is kind of classified in terms of proven, limited field history, new or unproven, all the components. And we kind of give a ranking to it so that we have a very clear idea that where efforts needs to be put to kind of bring those aspects also within the level of confidence. So that's under the technology qualifications. And then we have the threat assessment, where we identify all the failure modes of concern for the elements, and we judge and rank them in terms of probability and the consequence severity. And then we again the focus here on the higher and the medium one, and we try to see that what could be the mitigation measure, and that's why it's kind of an iterative process. Once that is done, then we go to the qualification methods, where we kind of come up with the methods to qualify. So we adequately address the identified failure mode of concern. We try to reduce the risk, and we also document and see what is the margin to failure. And this can be based on the documented experience, numerical analysis, testing, or the procedural precautions. So once the qualification methods are selected, then that is executed. And the executions and the methods could be through the analysis, testing, data collection, and the preventive procedures. So all in all, this technology qualification goes through these processes. And Once this iterative process is done, then finally, the technology can be termed as qualified. And it has several benefits. For example, it improves the end user's confidence in the system. It also improves other stakeholders, including the investors' confidence in the system. And then you also have an independent organization looking at it from a different perspective, because the one who has developed it has a linear view around it. And it will systematically identify the failure modes, and it will identify any design changes which are required at an earlier stage. So you have the opportunity to improve the system and optimize through the testing and analysis. So it will also increase the likelihood of delivering on time. And if you want to come up with a different version of the same technology, you want to change the environmental conditions or the operating condition, then it allows for the very quick, requalification of the new technology. And it's not that, it will be done only when the whole technology has been built. At different phases, this can be done. For example, at a very conceptual level, also this qualification can be done. And then once that is kind of done and concrete, then it can be done at the pre-engineering level, and finally at the detailed engineering level. So what DNB can deliver, like, in the phase one at the concept level, when it is done, then DNB will give the statement of feasibility. As a part of the report, it will give as technology assessment. And in the phase two, which is the pre-engineering level, it will give, the technology qualification plan or endorsement of the qualification plan. And finally, when at the phase three, when everything is done, it will give, a technology qualification report, and that will be the statement of qualified report. That's, in a nutshell, how the whole technology qualification process is done. And it can be chosen to, do it in a different phases or in a small models. And finally, it can also identify that at what technology readiness level your technology is. And this can be really helpful to sort of quickly indicate or convey that at which stage you are. And accordingly, you can target, the investors or, the other stakeholders if you want to convince them. So that's all about this. So I will just end these sessions with the final thoughts from Aristotle, who said that it is likely that something unlikely will occur, which is true. That we cannot completely remove unlikely, which I mentioned as unknown unknowns. So it is really likely that will happen. However, as Louis Pasteur mentioned, chances favor the prepared mind. So therefore, we should always target for this. And this is where technology qualification or the pilot project, a well-designed pilot project, will help in the scaling up. So that's all from my side. Over to you, Vatsala.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful and very clear presentation. We have two questions in the chat box. I'll read out. One is by Neeraj Mehta. A play school can use technologies for sustainability. How and where to find information?
Can you repeat again?
A play school can use technologies for sustainability? Question mark. How and where to find information?
Yeah, so first of all, we'll have to see that, what all play school is using. One is the electricity, so that you can have through the renewable sources. And then everything else that you are using that can come from the recycled material or, through the sustainable means. So on the slide, my email ID is there as well as phone number. So if somebody wants, they can connect to me through email, and I can direct them to the right sources.
And another question is by Himanshu Gupta. Our clean tech renewable energy startup in Delhi wants to collaborate with DNV. How to contact? Okay, so Mr. Kumar has given his credentials. You may please connect with him. Alternatively, I can also connect you, Himanshu. Then they're asking what are the charges for DNV report?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, being a technical consultant, we charge based on the time that we spend. And it all depends at which stage you are requesting for qualification. Like if it is at a very early conceptual stage, then time taken would be less. If it is at a much advanced stage, then it will be more. So I think it all depends on how much time you will have to spend. If you want to discuss this further, then of course again you have my email ID and we can take it up offline.
Yeah, another question I think is in the same lines. What is the cost for technology qualification process?
Yeah, so as I again mentioned, it all depends how much time we are spending. And once we have the technology, we do a very high level screening out just to find out the relevant technical expert within the organization. Then we form a team. And then, it's always a two-way process where we work very closely with you to understand your technology. And then whatever we come across as a kind of a independent check on our structural integrity, electrical integrity, operational integrity, that all we share. And that's kind of help you in modifying or, changing the concept stage itself. And again, that will come to us. It's more of a, to and fro. And depending on the time spent, our charges will be there.
Any further questions by anyone? I think people are interested in collaborating with DNV. So if anyone has such requirements, Mr. Kumar has put his contact number, and I will also, you can also connect with me. I can write to him with your queries. Any further questions we can take? Yeah, okay. So there are two more questions. What are the most effective strategies for incentivizing businesses and individuals to invest in sustainable solutions despite the higher upfront costs?
I mean, very difficult to answer for me how to incentivize. I mean, it has to be the collective process coming from the government, coming from the society as a whole. And I would say that right now, renewables solutions, especially the electricity costs, are not that high if you compare with the conventional one. And secondly, somewhere, as I mentioned, we haven't been able to fully convey, the risk that is coming along with the climate change and the extreme climate event that we are already witnessing in every cities at every place. And I think the biggest impact would be on the agriculture. So the first thing would be at the collective level, at the society level, whatever measures we are taking, be it, the residential society or anything, if they can move to the renewable sources, so that will be the best one. And renewables has an issue that it has upfront capital requirement, which is far more than the conventional one, and that's kind of act as a barrier. So that's where the government and the financial institution needs to step in, and they can come up with the innovative financial instrument to support that, because the OpEx is almost negligible. It's mostly about the CapEx, which is kind of front loaded in the beginning itself.
Okay, the last question, so it says any offer for startups?
Yeah, so I think internally, India has a lot of startup companies. And since, as I mentioned, we are operating in more than 100 countries and we have supported such initiative elsewhere for a very long time. We are thinking and we are discussing internally how to support Indian startup in a more cost-effective way to do that. So I think, as I mentioned, the best way is that when you have a concept at the beginning, at the earliest stage itself, it's better to run through the qualification process with us. So that will be helpful because it's not only about, because, when you are innovating, there will be no certification and guidelines because you are much ahead the time. And therefore, it will really help to fine tune the concept, and it will also help you to raise the investment or raise the money ahead, because then it will give more confidence to your stakeholders.
There's a follow-up question. It says, can you provide specific examples of successful studies where businesses have overcome the high initial costs of sustainability and achieved long-term economic and environmental benefits?
See, I mean, if you take the example of all technologies, renewable technology, when we started, they were very expensive. If I take the example of solar in 2012, the PPA, power purchase agreement, that the government signed was for 17 rupees per unit. Right now, we are talking about 2 rupees 15 paise, which is the cheapest source of electricity right now. And the same story is the wind. And we are in the same spot when it comes to the green hydrogen, when it comes to the, offshore wind. That's where the government needs to step up and they need to support and support till the prices will come down because of the economy of scale and because of a lot of innovations around that. So I think all the renewables, technology or solutions which are right now deployed at the mass scale, they started with a very, very high cost. Similarly, we are seeing the green hydrogen, the cost is too high than what we see for the brown or the black with respect to the brown or black hydrogen. So that is the norms, and that's therefore, it requires a lot of, I would say, support from the government, and the government has started giving incentive in these directions. We have, the incentive linked, the productions. Then we also have the green hydrogen missions to support that. Yeah.
I think we've come to the end of questions. They've also, our attendees have asked for a copy of the presentation, if it is okay with you.
Yeah, so that is fine. So as I mentioned during the discussion, I have taken a few reference from few people. So retain that. So I will share the PDF with you, Vatsala, and then you can circulate it to them.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So thank you for your valuable time. And I am very sure that we'll be connecting with you. I think just in a couple of days, because the interest from startups has shown that they wish to connect with DNB.
Sure.
So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And it's the Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to all of you. Merry Christmas to you, sir, also.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and same to all the, the participants.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. We're closing down now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining.